Upon graduating from college, entering the real world opens up a new chapter in life for many young adults. This was exactly the case for Grace Millane, a 21-year-old from Essex. After earning her degree from Lincoln University, she embarked on an exhilarating journey, exploring various places and meeting new people across the globe. However, the excitement took a tragic turn just before her 22nd birthday on December 1st, 2018. The man involved in unusual activities and the events that unfolded on that evening can be traced back to Auckland, the largest city in New Zealand. Known for its stunning harbors, vibrant culture, and lively atmosphere, Auckland attracts people from all corners of the world, seeking a blend of modern living and natural wonders. Grace Millane, a 21-year-old tourist from England, was one such visitor who came to experience the tranquility of nature and indulge in Auckland's delectable cuisine. Unfortunately, in 2018, Auckland became infamous for a horrific crime that occurred during Grace's visit. Imagine a typical Tinder date turning into the gravest mistake of your life. Well, that's precisely what happened to Grace Millane on December 1st, 2018. Before delving into the details, let's get acquainted with Grace herself. Born on December 2nd, 1996, in Essex, England, Grace was the youngest of 3 children, with 2 older brothers named Michael and Declan. She was a cheerful and outgoing individual who cherished her family dearly. With a sociable and optimistic personality, Grace always sought to make the most out of life. After completing high school, she pursued a bachelor's degree in advertising and marketing at the University of Lincoln. During her time at university, Grace not only worked various jobs to save money, but also formed lasting friendships and built strong connections. One of Grace's acquaintances, Jeff Kinrity, emphasized the vibrant and lively nature of Grace during this period. Grace possessed a deep passion for painting due to her immense creativity and artistic abilities. She dedicated a significant amount of time to creating paintings and took great pleasure in sharing them with others. Grace's thoughtfulness in expressing herself through her art was greatly admired by those around her. In September 2018, Grace successfully completed her degree and proudly donned a cap and gown. Instead of immediately assuming adult responsibilities, she eagerly anticipated a new adventure before embarking on the next chapter of her life. Grace had diligently saved up for an entire year to embark on a backpacking tour and was fully prepared for the exciting journey that lay ahead. Following her graduation, Grace became known for her compassion and kindness. Prior to commencing her trip, she undertook a truly special act. Grace decided to cut off her hair and donate it to the Little Princess Trust, an organization that creates wigs for children suffering from cancer. In October 2018, filled with anticipation, Grace bid farewell to her family home and set off on her travels. The spirited graduate departed from Heathrow Airport, ready to embark on her first major adventure. Over a span of 6 weeks, Grace explored Peru on a backpacking expedition in South America. Surrounded by fellow travelers from various corners of the globe, she fully immersed herself in the country's breathtaking beauty. Although her time there was brief, Grace cherished every moment, fully aware that it was merely the beginning of her global journey. With great excitement, Grace eagerly shared each photograph with her family, expressing her love for every aspect of her trip. On November 19, 2018, Grace arrived in New Zealand, brimming with enthusiasm to explore the stunning landscapes of the North Island. Unlike her planned excursion in Peru, this time in New Zealand was a solo adventure, granting her the freedom to savor the experience at her own pace. After enjoying 10 marvelous days exploring the North Island, Grace made the decision to celebrate her upcoming 22nd birthday in the lively city of Auckland. She arrived in Auckland on November 30th, 2018, just 2 days before her momentous day. Grace stayed at the Base Backpackers Lodge, a popular hostel on Queen Street, where she shared a room with fellow travelers. In the evening, she socialized with new friends she had met at the hostel, excited for a memorable birthday in the heart of New Zealand's largest metropolis. Despite planning to have an early night, Grace decided to browse the popular dating site Tinder while lying in bed. She hoped to connect with local people and make new connections during her stay. On December 1st, 2018, at approximately 5:37 p.m., Grace left the hostel for a date night in the city center. She wore a knee-length black dress, white shoes, and carried a cute little handbag. Grace had exciting plans to meet someone special she had matched with on Tinder. Initially hesitant about the meetup, Grace and her date eventually decided to go for it after some more chatting. They made a plan to grab some drinks at Sky City, a trendy entertainment complex and casino, just a short distance from her hostel. Just before her date arrived, Grace took a photo in front of the Sky City Christmas tree and sent it to her family back home. After sending the message, Grace looked around and focused on her phone. It was around 5:54 p.m. when a guy wearing sneakers, jeans, and a light blue unbuttoned shirt approached her. They shared a quick hug and then headed to a burger joint on the first floor. The evening was off to a great start, with no indication of the unexpected events that would unfold. They had dinner, got to know each other better, and instantly clicked. The vibe was so good that they decided to continue the date. Their next stop was a Mexican bar in the complex, where they enjoyed a few more margaritas. They arrived at the Mexican bar just after 7:00 p.m., spending the next hour and a half sipping on drinks and having a fantastic time together. The night was turning out to be a blast for Grace as she celebrated her upcoming birthday. Around 8:30 p.m., as depicted in the video, the gentleman settled the bill while engaging in conversation with the bartender. Subsequently, he and Grace embarked on their next destination, eager to continue their enjoyable evening adventure. Approximately an hour later, they made a stop at a nearby establishment called Blue Stone Room, a bar situated just a few minutes away from the man's residence. At a certain point, Grace rose from the table, and for an inexplicable reason, the man took hold of her handbag and began searching for something. This behavior raised suspicion, particularly considering that they had only just met. During their time at the bar, the atmosphere became more intimate as the two engaged in flirtatious banter for about an hour. It appeared to be a typical casual date with nothing extraordinary occurring. When the man excused himself to use the restroom, Grace seized the opportunity to send a text message to one of her friends back in England. She enthusiastically shared how well the date was progressing and how they had connected. Filled with excitement, she promised to divulge all the details in the morning. Unfortunately, that subsequent message never arrived, and tragically, her friend never heard from Grace again. The following morning, which happened to be December 2nd, 2018, Grace's 22nd birthday, commenced with a flurry of text messages and missed calls from her loved ones, all eager to wish her a happy birthday. As the day progressed from morning to afternoon and then evening, the celebratory greetings for Grace's birthday went unanswered. She did not answer either of her two phones, as both calls were directed straight to voicemail. She failed to respond to any messages or share any pictures of her trip to update everyone on her well-being. Initially, Grace's parents were not overly concerned due to the significant time difference of 13 hours between the UK and New Zealand. They assumed she might be out celebrating her birthday in an area with no cellular reception. However, as the hours turned into days without any communication from their daughter, the silence became increasingly conspicuous and worrisome. Grace was renowned for regularly updating her loved ones about her travels, ensuring she never missed a day without checking in. Therefore, her sudden disappearance on her birthday came as a shock and raised concerns for her worried parents. The growing silence only intensified their apprehension, leaving them wondering where Grace could be. Sensing that something was amiss, her father wasted no time and promptly purchased a ticket to New Zealand, embarking on a journey to find his daughter. Upon arriving on December 5th, 2018, Grace's father immediately took action by filing a missing persons report with the local authorities. The New Zealand police swiftly responded to the situation, actively involving themselves in the case as soon as they were informed of Grace's disappearance. They promptly reached out to the hostel where Grace had been staying, and it was confirmed that she had not returned on the night of December 1st, 2018. Initially, the police did not suspect foul play since most of Grace's belongings remained in her hostel room. However, due to the urgency and mounting pressure, they promptly organized a press conference, appealing for assistance in locating 22-year-old Grace Millane, who had last been seen at 7:15 p.m. on December 1st. Recognizing the significance of social media and public reporting, over 20 staff members were assigned to the case. They understood the importance of gathering information and utilizing the community's support to aid in locating Grace and resolving the mystery surrounding her disappearance. Fortunately for the detectives, it did not take long to identify the last person seen with Grace before she vanished. Their initial step involved delving into her social media accounts to unravel the digital trail and piece together the events leading up to her disappearance. This digital detective work proved to be a crucial aspect of the investigation. On the night Grace disappeared, she made a change to her Facebook profile picture. Shortly after, a comment was posted under the picture, complimenting her beauty. This caught the attention of the police, who identified the person behind the comment as Jess Kempson. Jessie was staying at the City Life Hotel in Auckland at the time. However, what raised even more concern was a previous post written by Jesse. In parts of the post, he expressed remorse for his mistakes, arrogance, and selfishness. But before delving into that, let's gather more information about Jessie. Jess Kempson, who was 26 years old at the time, was born in Wellington and had a nomadic childhood due to his parents' separation. While his grandparents played a role in raising him, he grew distant from many other family members. People who knew Jesse described him as a compulsive liar, constantly fabricating stories about different aspects of his life. He would make up tales such as being the cousin of a famous All Blacks rugby player or falsely claiming to be terminally ill with cancer. His habit of lying extended to everyone, including employers, landlords, partners, and even his own family and friends. Jess's constant lying led to him being evicted from multiple residences and losing jobs repeatedly. For instance, he once convinced a former landlord that he was a professional softball player signed by New Zealand's national team, the Black Sox, and was awaiting contract money. However, after 8 weeks of excuses, the landlord grew suspicious and contacted the Black Sox management, exposing Jesse's lies once again. His last job in telephone sales also ended in dismissal due to his deceitful behavior. Coincidentally, it was on December 1st, 2018, the same day he met Grace Millane, that he lost his job. Recognizing Jesse as the last person seen with Grace, the police realized he held crucial information for their investigation. Consequently, on December 5th, 2018, the day Grace was reported missing, the police visited the City Life Hotel to speak with Jesse. As they approached the front desk, Jess returned to the hotel as well. Interestingly, upon spotting the police, he swiftly turned around and began walking in the opposite direction, keeping his head firmly facing away from them. However, the police quickly noticed Jesse's attempt to evade them, pursued him, and brought him in for questioning. Despite Jesse's efforts to appear innocent and deny any involvement in Grace's disappearance, the police persisted with their investigation, even in the face of his occasional concern. During the interview, the police had a dedicated investigation team diligently working, with one crucial phase involving the examination of CCTV footage. Auckland City boasts numerous CCTV cameras, which provided an extensive amount of footage from the night Grace went missing. Analyzing this footage was time-consuming due to its minute-by-minute coverage of every area. Nonetheless, it proved invaluable in understanding the interactions and movements of both Grace and Jesse, as well as the progression of the evening. While being interviewed, Jesse brought up the concept of catfishing, expressing apprehension about meeting someone who may not have been Grace. He claimed to have chosen to meet her at Sky City, amidst a bustling crowd, to ensure his own safety. This appeared to be an attempt to establish his innocence, suggesting that if the person he met wasn't Grace, he too could have been at risk of disappearing. The police found Jesse's reactions and behavior during the interview somewhat peculiar, particularly considering that the woman he was with had actually vanished that night. At one point, Grace faced a decision. She could either head back to her accommodation at the base backpackers by going to the right, or she could proceed towards the City Life Hotel where Jesse was staying. As the investigators intensified their pressure on Jesse, he began to display signs of unease and slight panic. Nevertheless, he continued to assert that he had nothing to hide, despite the escalating intensity of the questioning. According to him, nothing out of the ordinary had occurred that night. According to his account, the date concluded positively with a warm embrace and plans for the next day. They bid farewell around 10 p.m., and he mentioned that he attempted to message her on Tinder the following day, only to discover that Grace had unmatched him. This marked the abrupt end of their interactions, as Jesse described it. However, the officers were still in the process of reviewing CCTV footage from the City Life Hotel, and more answers to lingering questions were on the verge of emerging. Despite Jesse's claim that they parted ways on the streets, the footage revealed a different story. Both Jesse and Grace were captured arriving at the City Life Hotel arm in arm, appearing content. They even exited the elevator together on Jesse's floor. Surprisingly, there was no footage of Grace leaving the building, which raised concerning questions about what transpired after they entered the hotel. On the morning of Grace's birthday, cameras recorded Jesse leaving the hotel, but there was no sign of Grace. The cameras closely monitored his movements in the subsequent hours. Jesse left the hotel and engaged in a peculiar sequence of activities. His first stop was a nearby store to purchase a suitcase, followed by a detour to acquire cleaning supplies. Before noon, he hailed a taxi and headed to a car rental company, where he opted to rent a flashy red Toyota Corolla. After several hours, Jesse met another woman he had connected with on Tinder. She later recounted disturbing conversations that took place during their encounter. In a shocking turn of events, he discussed burying bodies, methods to eliminate the smell of blood, and claimed to have acquaintances who were police officers. His date felt extremely uneasy, to the point where she declined Jess's offer to ride in his car. Instead, she chose to find her own way home and vowed never to communicate with him again. Following the unsettling date, Jesse ventured back into the city center. But this time, he had an unusual task at hand, renting a Rub Doctor carpet cleaning machine. During the staff's inquiry into his request, Jesse calmly provided an explanation for needing it. He had some red wine stains that required immediate attention. Despite the unusual nature of his request, Jesse maintained a composed and ordinary demeanor throughout the interaction. Later that evening, at approximately 9:30, Jesse was observed loading 2 suitcases onto a hotel trolley. He proceeded to unload them into the Toyota he had previously rented. After placing the bags in the car's trunk, he returned to his room for the night. The following morning, around 7:00 a.m., Jess once again appeared on camera. This time, he visited a nearby store and purchased a shovel. Subsequently, he entered the rented car and embarked on a drive. Approximately 2 hours later, he was spotted at a local car wash meticulously cleaning the vehicle. It was evident that he took great care in this task before returning to his apartment. These actions, particularly the purchase of a shovel, raised additional concerns and contributed to the enigmatic sequence of events surrounding Jesse. Finally, on December 5, 2018, the day Jesse was questioned, he was observed visiting various locations, including Albert Park, where he disposed of items in bins that were wrapped in black bags. Despite Jesse's denial of any involvement during the questioning, the police began to harbor serious suspicions about him. The forensic search of Jesse's room revealed even more disturbing details. Despite his efforts to eliminate any traces, Grace's blood was discovered throughout the floor. The application of luminol revealed the extent of the cleanup attempt, as the entire room emitted a glowing reaction. Furthermore, it became evident that Jesse had walked through the wet blood multiple times. As time progressed, fear among the public grew, and the police expressed grave concerns for Grace's well-being. On December 8, 2018, with an increasing amount of evidence coming to light, Jesse was finally apprehended for further questioning. This time, when confronted with all the discoveries made by the officers, his narrative underwent a drastic transformation. During the subsequent interview, Jesse asserted that upon waking up the following morning and realizing Grace's lifeless state, he was overcome with shock. However, this raised numerous inquiries regarding how one could fail to perceive the well-being of their partner after an intimate encounter, to the extent that she could perish. Despite this, Jesse persistently denied any culpability in Grace's demise. The contradictions between Jesse's initial and subsequent interviews were stark. According to the interviewer, he exhibited traits of a narcissistic sociopath who derived pleasure from his actions. In Jesse's account, he claimed to have been so terrified that he possessed the presence of mind to strategize and decide to conceal Grace's body in a suitcase and bury it in an undisclosed location to eradicate any evidence. However, he seemed to have overlooked the fact that his movements were captured by CCTV cameras, which exposed the inconsistencies in his narratives. Consequently, Jesse was formally charged and detained by the police. While incarcerated, the investigation persisted and unveiled more unsettling details. It was discovered that between December 1st and December 7th, Jess conducted a series of disturbing Google searches. These searches, which took place on the night of December 1st at approximately 1:30 a.m., while Grace lay lifeless in his room, included topics such as hottest fire, flesh-eating birds, and the Waitakere Ranges, the very location where he buried Grace's body. Furthermore, following these searches, he visited an adult website and took several intimate photographs of Grace's deceased body. These actions, far from indicative of shock, suggested a deliberate awareness of his actions. Meanwhile, based on the information provided by Jesse during the interview, the police promptly initiated a search on December 9, 2018, in an area along Scenic Drive near the Waitakere Reservoir. Shortly after 4 p.m., law enforcement officers discovered a body approximately 10 yards from the road. The swift response by the authorities tragically confirmed that the body belonged to none other than Grace, bringing a somber conclusion to the investigation. Grace's parents had held on to hope that their daughter might be in a safe place and would eventually return home, but this devastating news completely shattered their world. The moment was filled with intense emotions for everyone involved in the search, and the grief spread across the nation. Thousands of people came together to pay tribute to Grace by participating in vigils, reflecting the collective mourning of the entire community. New Zealand's Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, publicly apologized to Grace's parents and offered her full support during this heart-wrenching time. Jess Kempson, the accused murderer of Grace Millane, faced charges and appeared in an Auckland court on December 10, 2018, just 9 days after Grace's tragic death. In order to ensure a fair trial, Kempson was granted interim name suppression. This legal measure aimed to prevent the release of certain details to the public during the early stages of the trial, in order to avoid prejudicing the proceedings. Following an autopsy, a pathologist confirmed that Grace had been strangled. The examination revealed bruises on her arms and chest, indicating that she had been forcefully pinned down. The pathologist explained that causing these injuries required significant force, and the pressure on her neck must have endured for a prolonged period of 4 to 5 minutes, ultimately leading to Grace's tragic death. Over a month after her passing, on January 10, 2019, a large gathering of individuals assembled at Brentwood Cathedral in Essex to pay their respects at her funeral. Detective Scott Beard, who had been involved in the case, traveled to England to offer support and condolences to the Millane family. The significant turnout reflected the widespread sympathy and shared sorrow experienced by the entire community during this solemn occasion. On January 16, 2019, a mere 6 days after Grace was laid to rest, Jesse appeared in the High Court and pleaded not guilty. The trial commenced on November 4, 2019, lasting for a duration of 3 weeks. Throughout most of the proceedings, Jesse maintained a stoic expression, displaying no visible emotions. Under the guidance of Ian Brookie, Jess's defense team argued that Grace's demise was the unfortunate result of consensual rough intimacy gone awry. They contended that Grace had engaged in similar physical encounters prior to meeting Jesse, and this particular instance was a tragic case of physical misfortune. The defense aimed to frame the events leading to Grace's death within the context of consensual actions that took an unintended and unfortunate turn, rather than a deliberate act. They asserted that Jesse, in a state of panic, attempted to conceal Grace's body after realizing that the encounter had accidentally led to her demise. The defense portrayed his subsequent efforts to hide Grace's body as impulsive reactions to a situation that had spiraled out of control. However, the prosecution, led by Crown Solicitor Brian Dickey, sought to depict Grace's murder as intentional. Dickey presented a substantial amount of compelling evidence and witnesses to counter the defense's claim that Jess panicked, emphasizing that this was not a mere mistake. According to Dickey, the evidence pointed towards a deliberate and intentional act. Jesse systematically and coldly attempted to cover his tracks by consistently lying and fabricating numerous stories in the process. On November 22, 2019, a jury consisting of 7 women and 5 men reached a guilty verdict after just 5 hours of deliberation, dismissing Jess Kempson's claims of innocence. He was convicted for the murder of Grace Millane and subsequently sentenced to life imprisonment on February 21, 2020, with a minimum non-parole period of 17 years. This meant that he would be eligible for parole only after serving a minimum of 17 years behind bars. The trial sparked widespread outrage as many criticized the way Grace's life was portrayed and her killer's attempts to rationalize her death. Instead of holding the killer accountable, it was seen as victim blaming, which was deeply shameful. However, the story did not end there, as Jesse faced 2 more trials the following year. In October 2020, 2 women came forward with horrifying stories after recognizing Jesse's blurred image following his arrest for Grace's murder. The first trial involved Jesse's former partner, who spoke about enduring physical, emotional, and financial abuse. Jesse had subjected her to threats with knives, choking, coercion, and drained her bank account of $10,000. He was found guilty of 8 charges and received a sentence of 7.5 years in prison. In November 2020, Jesse faced another trial for physically abusing a young tourist he had met on Tinder just 8 months prior to meeting Grace. He had attempted to force himself on her and threaten harm to her and her family if she did not comply. He was found guilty and received an additional 3.5 years in prison, bringing the total sentence to 11 years, which would run concurrently with the sentence for Grace's murder. Tragically, in November 2020, Grace's father, David Millane, passed away after battling cancer. Grace's parents never had the chance to see their daughter again. Grace was a vibrant and adventurous young woman, always eager to explore new things. Unfortunately, she embarked on a journey from which she never returned, leaving behind a void in the lives of those who dearly miss her presence.
On the morning of August 3, 2007, the day started off bright and sunny for Daniel Burrows, a 61-year-old resident of Mays Landing, New Jersey, along with his 45-year-old wife, Loretta, and other community members. Daniel and Loretta had been married for several years, but things took an unexpected turn that afternoon. Loretta spotted Daniel in the company of a blonde girl, driving a yellow Hummer with Florida license plates. Naturally, she was taken aback and confronted Daniel about the situation. To her shock, Daniel confessed that he was leaving her for the younger lady. Unfortunately, that was the last time anyone saw Daniel. Many questions soon arise. What happened to Daniel? Did he simply elope with the younger woman, or is there a more troubling reason behind his sudden change in behavior and subsequent disappearance? Mays Landing, located within Hamilton Township in Atlantic County, New Jersey, is an unincorporated community and census-designated place According to the 2010 U.S. Census, the population of Mays Landing was recorded at 2,135 individuals. Notably, it serves as the county seat of Atlantic County, which is situated along the Jersey Shore. As of the 2020 census, Atlantic County ranks as the state's 15th most populous county. Mays Landing is renowned for the popular Baileys Winery, one of the largest wine producers in the state. The residents of this community are known for their easygoing and cheerful nature. In 2007, the crime rate in Mays Landing stood at 329 incidents per 100,000 people, significantly lower than the national average of 472. This is the very community where Daniel Burrows and his wife resided. Daniel Burrows, born on November 6, 1946 in Sheldon, Texas, was raised in the heart of Delaware County, Pennsylvania, alongside his sister, Jean Burrows Gallagher. Due to certain circumstances, they later moved to New Jersey, where his mother, Louise Florio Wontorsic, remarried Raymond J. Wontorsic. Daniel's half-brother, Raymond J. Wontorsic III, quickly became his closest companion. From a young age, Daniel displayed an extraordinary talent for craftsmanship, with his hands possessing a magical touch. His skills ranged from custom automotive paintwork to home construction. Although he did not have a conventional job, his knack for car repairs and renovations kept him occupied and satisfied. In 1960, Daniel attended high school, where he crossed paths with Loretta Doyle, his high school sweetheart. They experienced the highs and lows of teenage love, but their relationship was not particularly serious during that time. Unexpectedly, they went their separate ways after graduation and lost contact for many years. Both Daniel and Loretta moved on and married different individuals. However, they both went through divorces in 1970. Unfortunately, Loretta's second husband passed away in February 1994. Shortly after reconnecting, Loretta and Daniel's bond reignited, and they began dating once again. After 3 years of dating, the high school sweethearts decided to get married in 1997. They settled in Mays Landing, New Jersey, and everything seemed blissful. They blended their families, with children from their previous marriages, and Loretta even had 4 grandchildren. Daniel was a devoted father to his 2 children, Carolyn and Danny Jr., and a loving grandfather to Amanda Costa. However, their marriage was not as uncomplicated as it appeared. Over time, challenges arose beneath the surface of their seemingly smooth relationship. On August 3, 2007, Daniel mysteriously vanished from their home. Loretta recounted that Daniel had departed with a younger blonde woman in a yellow Hummer. As per her account, the woman was a waitress from Florida whom they had encountered during their vacation at a restaurant. Daniel developed a strong liking for the place, resulting in them dining there almost every day of their vacation. Upon their return home, Loretta embarked on another vacation with her daughter's family. Upon her return, she was taken aback to find Daniel in their driveway with the woman from Florida. While she was still trying to comprehend the situation, Daniel announced his intention to go to Florida, the Sunshine State, with her. Loretta insisted that Daniel had always desired to relocate and retire in Florida, a plan she opposed due to the proximity of her grandchildren. Their conflicting views on retirement plans strained their relationship. Following Daniel's sudden move, Loretta was devastated and sought revenge. She contemplated selling their house, but since the property was jointly owned by Daniel and Loretta, she could not do so without divorcing him. Instead, she organized a yard sale to dispose of Daniel's belongings. Unsurprisingly, this action infuriated and aroused suspicion among Daniel's friends and family. Robert Valiant Jr., Daniel's close friend, was perplexed as he knew Daniel cherished his tools for his projects, making it unusual for him to abandon them. Robert confronted Loretta about the yard sale and the abandoned tools, but Loretta asserted that Daniel had no interest in keeping his old belongings and did not wish to take them to Florida. Even Daniel's brother and best friend Raymond found the situation suspicious. Daniel had not shared his new address or informed him of his move to Florida, which they would typically discuss regularly. Daniel's sudden and unexpected departure left those close to him bewildered and concerned. They felt that the narrative did not align, yet they lacked evidence to contradict Loretta's account. However, they were determined to uncover the truth about Daniel's whereabouts and the identity of the mysterious girl who caused him to vanish without a trace. On September 1st, 2007, Raymond made the journey from his Pennsylvania home to visit Loretta and officially reported Daniel as missing to the police. The authorities immediately launched an investigation, focusing their search on local databases, particularly in Florida, where Daniel was rumored to have gone. Unfortunately, their efforts yielded no leads or traces of Daniel's whereabouts. Throughout the investigation, the detectives conducted interviews with Loretta, who remained cooperative and forthcoming. They also thoroughly searched her house and property, but found nothing suspicious or out of place. As they delved deeper into Loretta's background, the detectives stumbled upon a past embezzlement case. It came to light that Loretta had embezzled a substantial sum of money, approximately $500,000, from her previous workplace nearly a decade ago. This resulted in a 15-month federal prison sentence prior to her marriage to Daniel in 1997. When confronted with the evidence, Loretta claimed that she had been unfairly targeted by her company and that others were involved in the embezzlement as well. She admitted that she had kept this secret from Daniel out of fear. Surprisingly, it was revealed that Daniel had visited Loretta regularly during her time in prison, but she had not been entirely honest with him about the reason for her incarceration. Ronald Roberts, Daniel's friend and neighbor, also provided some concerning information to the investigators. He noticed dirt on Loretta's hands and clothing during their interactions and detected a foul odor, which she attributed to a dead animal. Additionally, he observed that a broken trellis had recently been repaired. Despite these suspicions, Loretta always had an explanation ready, frustratingly leaving the police without concrete evidence to make an arrest. As time passed, Daniel's case gradually grew colder, leaving his loved ones desperate for answers. In February 2009, Loretta took a significant step in her life by initiating divorce proceedings against Daniel. After enough time had passed, she believed it was justified to end their marriage and sell their house. To formalize the process, a notice was published in the newspaper. However, when the court hearing arrived, Daniel was nowhere to be found. Loretta's plan was to sell their house in Mays Landing and move to Ventnor City to be closer to her daughter and sister. In February 2010, Daniel Burrows' family successfully convinced investigators to reopen the case after the local police established a cold case unit in the county. The family also created a Facebook page called Find Daniel Burrows to gather information. In the page's About section, Raymond, Daniel's brother, expressed suspicion towards Loretta's claim that Daniel had left with another woman, leaving all his belongings behind. This raised doubts about Loretta's account of events. The case took an unexpected turn in February 2013 when Raymond, frustrated with the lack of progress, contacted the police. He believed that Loretta might be responsible for Daniel's disappearance and hinted that he might be deceased. Loretta was shocked by the accusations of her involvement in her husband's possible death. She maintained that Daniel had simply run away with a younger woman, but without concrete evidence to support either claim, the police were at a standstill. However, Raymond was determined to uncover the truth. He urged the detectives to investigate the suspicious death of Loretta's first husband. There were suspicions among both family members and friends that Loretta had played a role in his demise. The circumstances leading to his death were troubling. After a period of separation, Loretta and her former husband rekindled their relationship for about a week before tragedy struck, and he tragically overdosed. What deepened the suspicions even further was the fact that Loretta had been responsible for administering his medications during this period. Adding to the concerns, the police discovered that Loretta had received a substantial amount of money following his death. However, to everyone's surprise, she did not share any portion of it with his children. This raised red flags and strengthened the belief that something was amiss regarding the circumstances surrounding his death. Authorities began to suspect that Loretta's involvement went beyond what initially appeared. The similarities to Daniel's case only heightened their suspicions. However, despite their growing doubts, the police knew that without Daniel's body, they couldn't build a murder case. Nevertheless, they did stumble upon a potentially significant piece of evidence, a power of attorney document signed by Daniel. Upon closer examination, this document seemed suspiciously fake. It had been created on June 12, 2007, and had been legalized by an acquaintance of Loretta's, raising even more questions about the events surrounding Daniel's disappearance. It became evident that Loretta's primary motive was the valuable house, which was worth a substantial amount of money, and she was desperate to cash out. Investigators realized that there was more to this case than initially met the eye, and they were determined to uncover the truth about what had truly happened to Daniel. In the early morning of May 17, 2013, the investigators, led by Sergeant Lynn Doherty of the Atlantic County Prosecutor's Office, obtained search warrants for both Loretta's house and the residence where she had been staying with her sister. The search warrants were executed simultaneously, leaving Loretta with no opportunity to tamper with or destroy any potential evidence. Loretta seemed to have an inkling as to why the police were there, as she anxiously inquired if they were planning to search her house in Ventnor City upon their arrival. Detective Caroline McDonald stumbled upon an eerie finding while scouring one of the bedrooms in Ventnor City. To her surprise, she discovered a collection of sizable Tupperware containers meticulously arranged and hidden within the closet. Curiously, these containers were the sole items in the house organized in such a manner. Adding to the peculiarity, air freshener beads and dryer sheets were placed atop these containers. However, the moment the containers were opened, a nauseating odor of decay permeated the air, sending shivers down their spines. To their utmost horror, investigators uncovered bones that had been painstakingly separated into two containers, along with a concealed skull nestled within a woman's handbag. Loretta was subsequently apprehended and brought in for interrogation at the police station. In a state of distress, she tearfully admitted to the murder of Daniel and disclosed that his remains were concealed within the closet of her Ventnor residence. However, Loretta presented a narrative of domestic violence, asserting that she had acted in self-defense. According to her account, a heated argument ensued between them, prompting her to retreat to the kitchen and retrieve a knife. Loretta alleged that Daniel aggressively lunged at her, resulting in an accidental impalement with the knife. After the incident, she confessed to placing Daniel's lifeless body in the bathtub. When questioned by detectives about her failure to immediately contact emergency services, Loretta provided a disturbing explanation. She revealed that she had left Daniel's body in the bathtub and proceeded to embark on a vacation. Upon her return, she detailed how she relocated his remains into containers. Notably, Loretta admitted to exhuming and carrying these containers with her whenever she moved. The tragic truths surrounding Daniel Burrows was finally unveiled. Loretta faced charges of murder and obstructing her arrest. During the court proceedings, Loretta initially displayed minimal emotion, but as the testimonies unfolded, she broke down and began weeping. The testimonies commenced with Dr. Charles F. Sebert, Jr., a forensic pathologist who had opened the containers. Dr. Charles testified that the containers were enveloped in 9 layers of plastic bags, meticulously arranged in alternating directions. He also observed the presence of dryer sheets, air fresheners, and scented beads, evidently used to mask the scent of decomposition. Upon opening the first container, Dr. Charles discovered a woman's handbag, its color altered by the fluids of decomposition. Inside the bag, he uncovered a cranium, mandible, skull, and jawbone. The second, larger plastic container contained additional skeletal remains, including the left upper arm and lower legs. Upon examining the remains, Dr. Charles observed incisions on the ribs that were consistent with stab wounds. This led him to conclude that the individual had met a violent end, confirming a case of homicide. Following Dr. Charles' testimony, Dr. Stuart Alexander, a forensic odontologist, took the stand and positively identified the remains in the plastic tote as belonging to Daniel Burrows. He compared Burrows' dental records to the teeth found in the skull, providing further evidence of identification. Donna Fontana, a forensic anthropologist from the New Jersey State Police, also provided testimony regarding the condition of the bones within the boxes. To visually demonstrate the state of the bones, Fontana utilized a replica of a human skeleton and accompanying photographs, offering a clear visual aid for the jury. She specifically highlighted the right tibia, a significant bone in the lower leg, which exhibited distinct signs of being cut with a knife and saw. The consistent color of the cut edge with the bone indicated that the cut had occurred around the time of death. Additionally, Fontana observed that several ribs were missing, and those that displayed trauma showed injuries consistent with knife wounds, with one rib being completely fractured. Fontana emphasized that this pattern of dismemberment is often employed to hinder identification and facilitate transportation. On August 3, 2007, Daniel disappeared, with Loretta claiming he had left for a younger woman in a yellow Hummer. However, the prosecution believed that Loretta had orchestrated his murder. In early June 2007, Loretta approached lawyer Enid Heiberg and requested a power of attorney to be drafted, claiming that she and her husband were selling their home while he was away. Grateful for Loretta's kindness, Heiberg agreed to do it for free. Loretta then sought the assistance of Edward Dwyer to notarize the power of attorney, which she signed in her husband's name without his consent. Loretta's daughter, Nicole DiDomizio, witnessed this act of forgery. After Daniel's death, Loretta utilized the fraudulent document to sell their home for $77,000, with half of the proceeds belonging to Daniel. To gain access to the funds, she initiated a divorce in February 2009, alleging that Daniel had relocated to Florida without providing an address. Her divorce lawyer, Daniel Alsofrom, published a notice of the complaint in the Press of Atlantic City. During the divorce proceedings, Loretta received half of the money, with the remaining amount granted upon finalization. The prosecutor highlighted that Loretta acquired nearly $100,000, including the proceeds from the sale of Daniel's house and belongings. In his closing statement, Levis emphasized that Loretta had evaded justice for over 8 years, leaving behind only Daniel's remains. The narrative concludes with Loretta becoming $100,000 wealthier and concealing Daniel Burrows in her closet. Following 2 hours of deliberation, the jury found Loretta Burrows guilty of first-degree murder for fatally stabbing her husband, dismembering his body with a knife and saw, packing it into 2 plastic containers, and dragging it with her as she relocated 3 times within 6 years. On March 17, 2015, Loretta was convicted and sentenced to 55 years in prison, with an additional 3 years added for hindering apprehension. She will be eligible for parole in 2060 when she reaches 108 years old. After receiving her sentence, Loretta broke down in court and expressed her hope that her actions would bring some form of peace to those who had been harmed. Currently, Loretta is incarcerated at the Edna Mahon Correctional Facility for Women in Clinton, New Jersey, where she is expected to remain until her death. Raymond Wantosik experienced a mix of emotions following the conviction of his half-brother's murderer. Raymond had fought for a trial since Daniel's remains were discovered in May of 2013. He wanted the jurors to witness the gruesome evidence of what Loretta had done to Daniel. Raymond stated, "It was my brother who brought justice to this case. He brought justice to himself. His horribly mutilated body won the case." Raymond compared Loretta's actions to those of a butcher slaughtering an animal, emphasizing that Daniel was not an animal but a kind and gentle person who never caused harm to anyone. Loretta's emotional display in court, coupled with her insinuations of abuse by Daniel, were met with skepticism and dismissal from Raymond and other family members. They believed her tears were fake and her claims were false, suggesting that she only cried because she knew she would spend the rest of her life in prison after being caught. Robert Valiant Sr., a friend of Daniel's, expressed this sentiment. Carolyn Burroughs, Daniel's sister, was both outraged and bewildered by Loretta's behavior. She revealed that Loretta had attempted to sell Daniel's belongings shortly after his disappearance and had even advised people not to worry about him. Carolyn questioned how Loretta could have kept Daniel hidden in her closet while moving him from house to house. Assistant Atlantic County Prosecutor Kathleen Bond described Loretta's actions as unimaginable, resembling scenes from nightmares and horror movies. Bond highlighted that Loretta not only brutally stabbed her husband to death, but also dismembered his body with a serrated knife, leaving it to decompose for 6 years. At the time of this video's release, there were no updates on the investigation into the death of Loretta's first husband. Daniel Burroughs' story serves as a reminder to persistently advocate for what we believe in. The determination and advocacy displayed by Daniel's family, including the creation of a Facebook page and their push for reinvestigation, ultimately led to the uncovering of the truth. This case exemplifies the power of seeking justice and the importance of persistence. Regarding whether justice was served for Daniel Burroughs and whether Loretta's sentence was appropriate or if she should have received the death penalty, that is a matter of personal opinion.